Breaking right now, Washington County is on high alert after a person tested positive for the coronavirus. The news coming as both local and national leaders have declared a state of emergency, which will have major impacts starting on Monday. We're tracking major event closings as well as attractions as the country tries to slow down the spread of the virus. And that is the message Pittsburgh's mayor emphasized tonight. The city and area counties really wanting to keep cases to a minimum, and this is really the best way that they know how. Local stores are asking customers to just take a deep breath for a second when it comes to buying cleaning supplies. Empty shelves and aisles can be seen at stores like Target and Walgreens. And the video you are seeing here is the line to get into Costco. Target is now limiting cleaning supplies to 6 items per customer. Rite Aid's doing the same thing online. And CVS has announced that it is waiving home delivery fees for prescriptions. The news coming in just within the last 30 minutes or so from the state health department. There is now a presumed positive case out of Washington County. Mayor Bill Peduto has declared a state of emergency, and part of that includes an emergency declaration, which means groups of 250 or more are not going to be allowed to gather, and that includes private groups as well. He said he didn't want to disrupt things, he didn't want to have a sense of panic, but he really wanted to stay on top of this. And he said, you know, this is planning, active planning as it is happening, that they don't exactly have a game book for this, that they are trying to stay ahead of the curve on this, even as new information is constantly coming in. Here's what we know right now. Starting next week, gatherings of 250 people or more will be banned. The state of emergency will last for at least 7 days. The city is working with UPMC and AHN to expand testing capacity, supporting hospital needs and providing public safety in hospitals. And city employees are being encouraged to telework, or alternatively, they could bring their children to work beginning on Monday. Mayor Peduto added that he's not trying to scare people. He just wants everyone to start thinking about a plan for their children, and particularly to look ahead at events for this weekend. We have live Team 11 coverage of this outbreak and the fallout, including school closures, testing concerns, and how nursing homes are protecting our loved ones. And I'm Lisa Sylvester. In a little more than 2 weeks, some counties in the Commonwealth will reopen, and some won't. It has to do with the infection rate for the region that we're living in. Right now, state health leaders want fewer than 50 new cases on average over a 14-day period. If that happens, those counties can begin the transition process out of the red stage into the yellow. As we finish our show this Friday, we want to take a moment to acknowledge all of you. You may be mourning the loss of a loved one. You may be worried about a friend or a relative in a nursing home or hospital or jail. You may be concerned about your next paycheck. You may be frustrated because your stimulus check hasn't arrived. You may be itching to get back to work and see the economy reopen. You may be homeschooling your kids and extra ready for the weekend. You may be a helper. You may be sewing masks, delivering food, or donating money. No matter who you are a part of our community. You matter, and we hope all of you will be back with us on Monday. New drone video gives us a new perspective of what happened yesterday in downtown Pittsburgh. Police told us the peaceful protest over the death of George Floyd in Minnesota turned violent when a group of rioters moved in. This is at the corner of Forbes and Smithville, right near the CVS.
And breaking right now, a new protest in downtown Pittsburgh.
Yeah, this one started about 3 o'clock today. Protesters have spray painted some of the city streets, but so far tonight we have not seen the kind of violence and vandalism that we saw yesterday. Channel 11's Mike Holden is live in Chopper 11. Mike, protesters also gathered today in Greensburg. The peaceful group met at the courthouse before walking to St. Clair Park. This video from our trip partners shows them lying on the ground while chanting, "I can't breathe." And here is another view of that protest from Chopper 11. In an online post, organizers say they want to make sure that George Floyd's death was not in vain. Another group of protesters gathered this afternoon in Butler, and Chopper 11 was over the Diamond Park. That demonstration stayed peaceful, with many people holding signs calling for justice. But it was a different story last night. This is new video that shows the cleanup in Market Square after protesters smashed the glass of a building. Workers, you can see them there. They were there sweeping up, cleaning up the mess, sweeping those pieces of broken glass. And other businesses are taking precautions. Take a look here. You can see Chopper 11. This is over the 7-Eleven on the north side. And you can see those windows are boarded up just in case if things get out of control tonight. And keep in mind, this isn't very far away from Pittsburgh Police Headquarters. All told, the damage to downtown Pittsburgh is pretty widespread. Some 60 businesses were impacted. And this is a hard blow because some of those small businesses, they were just getting back on their feet after being shut down during the coronavirus quarantine. Channel 11's Lori Hoy talked to business owners and the Good Samaritans who are willing to help. And I'm Lisa Sylvester. We are just about 2 hours away now from the polls closing across Pennsylvania, and then the results will start pouring in. The huge number of mail-in ballots received in Pennsylvania this election is creating a big unknown. The state received 2.4 million of them. More than 300,000 are in Allegheny County. The race everyone is watching tonight, the presidential race, is very tight between the two candidates. Here is a look at the current national numbers that we can put up for you. You can see right there Joe Biden with 50%, Donald Trump with 49%. This has been flipping back and forth throughout the night. It is a nail biter here. And here in Pennsylvania, the race is just too close to call. We can update the numbers now. The numbers on your screen. 56% for Donald Trump to Joe Biden's 41%. Again, this is in Pennsylvania, but do keep in mind you do have a number of those early voting ballots that are still coming in. And in fact, you even have some of the counties that at this point are not even planning on counting them or resuming to count them until tomorrow. We want to take a closer look at the numbers here in our area. This is a look at the race in Washington County. And let's check in with the results so far. We believe we've got those numbers that we can put up. This is a live look. This is the presidential race in Allegheny County. This is right now 79% favor of Joe Biden to Donald Trump's 19%. Clearly, you can see that Biden is in the lead here in Allegheny County. Channel 11's Aaron Martin is live at the Allegheny County election headquarters. Aaron, it's going to be a very long night there, though. The presidential race remains a waiting game as we near 3 days after the election. No winner yet, but the president's lead here in Pennsylvania is quickly narrowing. Thanks for being with us. I'm Lisa Sylvester. You're looking live now at election workers counting ballots in Philadelphia. Again, overall in Pennsylvania, there's still more than 200,000 mail ballots left to count. But tonight, the state's top election official says we are in the home stretch. And Channel 11's Amy Hudak is live in Harrisburg tonight with the message from the state. Amy. With the final vote count still very much in flux, Pittsburghers rallied once again tonight, demanding that every vote be counted. A handful of community groups coming together to push for a fair election. And our Michelle Newell was with them all night to bring you their message. Long before it was known as the Steel City, Pittsburgh and our surrounding communities were known as a critical stop on the Underground Railroad. And as we celebrate this Juneteenth and the history behind the holiday, we wanted to highlight Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania's part in helping so many people to freedom. The road to freedom in Pittsburgh was really a river. 3 rivers, in fact. The Monongahela, Allegheny, and Ohio coming together. It's along these waterways where thousands of slaves navigated under a blanket of darkness to find freedom.
If you were a fugitive from slavery and you found your way to Pittsburgh, you are 99.9% likely to never be returned to slavery again.
Pennsylvania was a free state that bordered the slave state of Maryland. William Penn, who founded the Commonwealth, was a Quaker. The Quakers were among the first white people to denounce slavery. And here in Pittsburgh, there was a profound opposition to slavery. The Bigham House in Mount Washington is now in the community of Chatham Village. The home was built in 1849 by Thomas James Bigham, a state representative and wealthy newspaper owner. This is the attic in its original condition, the floors, the windows, and what looks like a closed-off portion of the roof.
This would have been the true attic.
Is where slaves found refuge, right in here. Very public figure.
He was.
But unbeknownst to the general population, he was essentially hiding slaves.
Right. And he was a very big risk taker, but, for a good cause.
Throughout downtown Pittsburgh, there are markers showing other spots on the once secret Underground Railroad. In Market Square, if you look down, is embedded the North Star, a reminder of the constellation that slaves used to guide them to freedom. On the corner of Water and Smithville Streets, where this government building stands, once was the Monongahela House, one of the city's finest hotels that also doubled as a stop on the Underground Railroad. And across the street, there is a marker for the Bethel AME Church.
We had barber shops, we had bathing houses, we had publishers. So these people worked in concert to help people who were running away.
White and black activists worked side by side in Pittsburgh to fight slavery. People like Martin Delaney. Delaney's parents were free blacks. He became a doctor and publisher and worked tirelessly to end slavery. At Market Square, there is a plaque in his honor.
Pittsburghers of that era put themselves on the right side of history and put Pittsburgh on the map forever to live in glory, really. And that's the story that we should be telling about Pittsburgh all the time.
The abolition movement led to the Civil War and the Union victory in April of 1865. But slavery still lingered in places like Texas. It was only until Union General Gordon Granger on June 19, 1865, issued this order that slavery was finally over.
Juneteenth is, they really call it our Freedom Day, or Independence Day.
47 states now recognize Juneteenth as a state or ceremonial holiday, but it is still not a federal holiday.
We must push forward, and we must remind ourselves and others of our history.
We started simply with asking people, what is social justice? And again, we heard similar themes, that it's fairness and it's equity for all, that all people have access to equal opportunities for jobs, for education, to feel safe in their neighborhood, and for the law to be applied equally to everyone. And that shouldn't depend on your economic status, your race, or your gender.
Social justice would be families being able to get justice when they lose loved ones.
When I think about social justice, I think it's everyone has equity.
We see wealth disparity, we see criminal justice disparities.
You just have like this storm of potential when you think about minority communities. So much, but you have a drought of opportunity.
The 2020 pandemic forced the nation into a moment of collective quiet. But when the stay-at-home orders were lifted, the country's consciousness shifted.
I cannot breathe.
A lot of people, I think, saw themselves and saw their family members.
So we have to stop treating people differently based on their station in life and their resources.
We sat down to hear various opinions on what the country should do to address social justice from the highest level, the White House.
We may not want to say it out loud, we may not want to talk about it, but either implicitly or explicitly, conscious or unconscious, we all have a bias in this country around black people.
Dr. Darren Whitfield is a Pitt professor of social work. He says the country has never really reckoned with racism.
I grew up fearing the police. I was taught by my family and my neighbors and my community, and these were predominantly black neighborhoods, that the police were not to be trusted. The police were not here to protect you.
Are you afraid of the police now?
If I'm to be honest, I am slightly afraid of what might happen to me, because no amount of education, no amount of, resources in terms of socioeconomics is going to protect me against a police officer if they wanted to harm me.
Dasha Clemens is with the group I Can't Breathe. She says whoever is the president in 2021 has to have a message that bridges and brings people together.
But we can't do that fighting. We can't do that with the red side and the blue side. We can't.
On police reform, that means holding officers accountable.
A playground bully should not grow up to be a cop.
There are also deep-rooted systemic problems that need to be addressed. Tanisha Long with Black Lives Matter Pittsburgh says end the school-to-prison pipeline.
One of the biggest things you could do is get rid of for-profit prisons. One of the biggest things you could do is look at the way that we parole and probation people, where if they make the smallest little incident, they're back in jail, where they learn how to be better criminals.
To get closer to social justice means to Beth Pittinger with the Citizens Police Review Board.
The reordering of our priorities by looking at what are our housing opportunities, what is the basic minimal standard of living in our country.
People should at least earn enough to eat, right, and not have to work 2 or 3 jobs. And so what does that mean? How do we reshuffle that?
It starts early on, addressing the imbalance in education.
We have black students graduating at 17% across the country, 17% literacy proficiency. Until we recognize and acknowledge that our African American students are so far behind, we're not going to be able to put the pressure on school systems to change it.
They all agree that 2020 is a call for the country to take steps to heal deep wounds.
I mean, this is an exciting moment. We're in a cultural revolution. It's actually happening.